Hello and welcome to Miniatures Rundown, Necromundown. If you're already aware of today's topic, then you already know what this video is about. If you didn't though, then you don't know enough about psychic powers in Necromunda, and we're here to tell you.
You know, he didn't run that by me, but it makes sense now.
So, Psykers in Necromunda. I guess we should start with what is a Psyker, because maybe folks who don't play Warhammer 40,000 don't know what we mean by psychic or Psyker.
Yeah. Psyker is basically
A wizard.
high-tech magic.
So, in the Warhammer universe, there is the Immaterium, the Warp. It's where all the demons live. It's where non-real space is.
When they go hyperspace, that's where they travel through.
Any being that has a soul kind of has a soul mirror in the Warp. If you're a Dragon Age player, it's a lot like the Fade, which there's lots of analogs for this in lots of media, right? Some humans and other species, elves especially, Eldar, sorry, but some humans, as far as Necromunda is concerned, can tap into the Warp and basically draw energy and power from it and then manifest that as powers. It's basically magic.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, it is magic. It is not without its downsides, though, because the Warp is where all the demons live, and generally, if you're tapping into it, the demons are trying to get into you and take over your body so they can party in real space for a bit before they ruin your body and leave. So in Necromunda, psychic powers are rare.
Yes.
They're
one, maybe two Psykers in a gang.
Yeah. Most gangs don't have an easy way to get one.
Right.
But they are a part of the game. And they do have some specific rules that are found nowhere else, including one of the only uses of the willpower stat.
Basically.
That and corpse grinder cults.
Yeah.
So, Psyker is basically magic. If you're used to 40k or Age of Sigmar, there are some similarities to those systems, but they're, like everything else in Necromunda, there's more to it here. Let's talk about the mechanics of psychic powers. Sorry. They're called Wyrd powers. W-Y-R-D.
Yeah, it says Psykers in Necromunda, but they're called Wyrd powers.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Except they're also called psychic powers right there. Welcome to Necromunda. There's multiple names for everything.
Yeah. So first and foremost, in order to do a Wyrd power, you have to, like you said, take a willpower check.
So willpower checks, like all the mental stat checks, are 2d6.
And you have to beat whatever stat you have. So the lower your number, the better.
And this is kind of different from other games you might be used to, because in like Age of Sigmar, every spell has a certain value you're trying to beat.
Right.
In Necromunda, you're just trying to meet or beat your own willpower stat. So if my Psyker has a willpower of 6, and I want to cast a power, any power, doesn't matter which one, I roll 2d6, I'm hoping for 6 or up.
Yep.
And that's it. Like we said, this is one of the few uses of the willpower stat in this game. The other uses are mainly defending against psychic powers or fear effects.
Yeah, like the fearsome special rule or
corpse grinder
cults.
masks.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare. So this is mostly where willpower comes in. All right, so like you said, psychic powers are usually actions.
They're not always actions. Some of them are special. But just like any other action in the game, there is simple, basic, and double. There's also a continuous type of psychic, which would mean that you cast it, and as long as you keep passing your test every turn, which we will get into in a bit, your power will keep going. Usually there's stat increases, like having access to a specific type of weapon, that kind of thing. That being said, there are a few ways to keep those going, the main one being maintain control simple action. So you can, at the beginning of your activation, if you have a continuous power going, you can, for free, take the maintain control action.
Which is just making a willpower check.
Yep. Or you can use up one of your actions to get +3 to your roll. So if you really, really need to keep that going, you can, I don't want to say guarantee it, but help a lot.
Yeah, it depends on what your base willpower is.
Yeah.
If you have a willpower of 4 and you add 3 to that, then you can only fail on double ones, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
If you have a willpower of 8,
going to a 5 is pretty good.
It's a lot better than an 8.
Yeah.
Speaking of buffing your powers when you try to cast one. If the power you're trying to cast is not a double action, which some of the better ones usually are, if it's a simple action, simple means you can do it as many times as you want. Basic means you can only do it once. You can also choose to concentrate, which means you add +1 to your roll. It's not great.
It's not great.
But it depends on where you are. Remember that the way 2d6 rolls work is that it's a bell curve. The closer you get to the middle, the more likely it is you will roll something on a 2d6. 7 is the most common roll on a 2d6 by far. So using concentrate to go from an 8 to a 7 is really good.
Yeah.
Going from a 6 to a 5 is less good.
Right. It's a diminishing returns type.
Going from a 4 to a 3 is don't waste your action.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's useful to you when you're trying to cast your psychic powers is entirely up to the situation, how many actions you have.
Yeah. If guaranteeing that psychic power wins you the game, you probably
take the shot.
Take the shot.
If not,
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. So when you cast, you roll 2d6. You either meet or beat your willpower. If you meet it or beat it, the power goes off. If you don't, it doesn't go off.
Right.
Similar to Age of Sigmar or 40k. In Age of Sigmar, it's just called, I forget what it's called.
Deny?
Deny. No, it's Deny the Witch in 40k.
Well, which isn't a thing anymore because Psychic Phase isn't a thing anymore.
It was Deny the Witch in 40k.
It was Deny the Witch in 40k.
In Necromunda, it's called a Psychic Duel. Basically, and this is very rare. Because if you're casting a psychic power, if your opponent has a Psyker, they can try and roll a willpower check to beat yours and cancel your power. They have to roll higher than your roll. So there is some counterplay for psychic powers,
but
it is so... Psychic powers are rare enough.
Yeah.
Having 2 Psykers on the different sides of the field at the same time, within range of each other,
which is 18
inches,
18-inch range,
is very rare.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take up an action or a ready marker on the part of the person who's trying to deny. So it can go off.
Yeah.
If you have that situation, it's usually worth trying because you've wasted your opponent's action if it goes off and it costs you nothing.
Right.
There are also some abilities and drugs that you can buy that will let you try and deny.
Right.
There's also a drug that will give you psychic powers, but we'll get to that. However, like we said, the warp is a dangerous place full of demons and other nasties that want to eat you from the inside out, literally. So trying to invoke a psychic power is not without risk, specifically the risk of double 1s or double 6s. That's called Perils of the Warp, which is you're used to from 40k. And it used to be Age of Sigmar too, though they now call it a miscast.
Sure.
If you roll double 1s or double 6s, bad things happen. If you roll double 1s, the power fails. Full stop.
In addition to a demon sticking its finger in your nose.
Thank you for saying nose. I was concerned with where you were going with that.
I was going to say ear, but nose was funnier. Whereas if you roll double 6s, you get perils, but your power
still goes off, and your opponent can't roll higher than that, so it automatically goes off. If Perils of the Warp happens, you... Or here's the thing. Perils of the Warp can also happen if you're trying to deny the witch or disrupt a Psyker.
Right. So there is a downside to trying to disrupt.
Because if you roll Perils of the Warp...
That being said, that's what, 2 and 36?
Yes.
So it's not that bad.
It's not that bad. But it does happen. Double 1s, double 6s do happen. There is also, I think there's one like psychic ability in one of the bounty hunters or something, somewhere where Perils happens in any double.
Ooh.
Which really sucks.
That's pretty good for the guy who has that.
And when Perils happens, you roll 2d6 on an additional table called the Perils of the Warp table. Let's talk about these mostly because they're really fun.
Yeah. Necromunda and their tables.
Yes. Terran Reality. 5-inch blast marker on the Psyker. Any model touched by the marker has to make a willpower test, or lose a wound, or suffer the driver wounded effect.
Yeah.
The Psyker then goes out of action.
So they explode.
That's what you're used to from 40k, which is the Psyker explodes. Because in that one, it's like they do D3 mortal wounds, and it's in a 3-inch radius. This one's about a 3-inch. It's a 2.5-inch radius.
Sure.
Roughly.
It's pretty close. Pretty close.
Circumference equals pi r squared, whatever. Immaterium Inverse. The warp inverts, so the Psyker becomes the target of the power that they were trying to cast. Or if it was a good power that they were trying to cast on themselves, they get a Strength 6 D2 damage 2 hit that ignores armor saves.
Ignores armor saves.
Yeah.
And the power has no other effects.
Right.
Which means that even if you roll double sixes, the power still doesn't do anything.
Right. So bad. What's the third one there?
Whispers from the Warp. The Psyker becomes subject to the Insane condition. Insane's always fun. The Insanity marker on the Psyker's fighter card, and roll a d6 in the Insane table immediately.
We haven't talked about the Insane status yet, but basically you have a chance to attack your allies or do random things.
Yeah, or do nothing.
Insane is one of the worst conditions to get in this entire game.
Yeah.
That, by the way, is 6 through 8 on this table.
By far the most likely.
By far the most likely, because getting 7, most common, 6 and 8, second place.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to go insane.
That's like a 65% chance, 70% chance to get that.
It's not that high,
No.
but it's half or more.
Yeah.
It's pretty darn high. Warp Surge. So what's nice is, for the higher part of the table, you do get benefits.
Sure.
If you do Perils of the Warp. Warp Surge, the Psyker may immediately try to manifest the same power again as a free action, or disrupt again as a free action. The power then becomes prone and pinned and suffers a Strength 4 hit, which inflicts 1 damage, no armor saves.
So it is, if they were disrupting, they get to try one of their powers for free. Not try to disrupt again.
But that additional manifestation can trigger Perils of the Warp again.
That would be so funny.
Which would be really funny. And then the Strength 4 damage 1 hit is not that bad.
No, it's no Strength 6 damage 2, no armor saves.
It also proned and pins you.
Yeah.
And then 11 and 12 on 2d6 is the Demonic Possession. Which
That's
is
my favorite.
You get movement, strength, and toughness and attacks all go up by 3. Your weapon skill gets set to 2 up. Your unarmed attacks inflict 2 damage and have an AP of 1. But in the end phase of the next round, you go out of action. Or if you do Perils again, somehow.
That one's amazing.
So basically you get turbo possessed by a demon who takes over your body for a round or 2.
And then you pass out.
And then you pass out. Right. And all of these, if you go out, out of action, you roll on the out of action table
like
as normal.
Yeah.
So you could potentially die or get injured or be out cold.
Do you give yourself bonus experience on double ones?
That would be really funny, and I'm going to say yes. Well, it's lesson learned, right?
Yeah.
What did you learn? Stop talking to demons.
I'm still going to talk to demons.
I'm still going to talk to demons. Alrighty. That's mostly it. But one last thing, which is that there's 2 kinds of Psykers on Necromunda. One of them far more common than the other. Basically, and this is also true of the Imperium as a whole, there are Psykers who are allowed to be there, and there are Psykers who are not.
Because psychic is heretical or whatever.
Well, I don't know. Every time you try to invoke it, there's a pretty good chance you blow the heck up, so I'm kind of with the Imperium on this one.
I mean, agree to disagree.
The Imperium is, amongst the many, many things it is incredibly prejudiced and racist towards, they're not the good guys. They really don't like Psykers. So Psykers are very tightly controlled. If you are a tightly controlled Psyker, which in Necromunda means you are a part of the state,
Yeah.
like you're under Helm War's control, they're very, very rare. You're called a sanctioned Psyker. That basically means that you're probably under state control, and you have a little more training on how to control your own powers. And that is reflected in the rules by, if you're a sanctioned Psyker, you get to reroll 1 failed willpower test per battle.
Sure.
Which could save your butt, because you could reroll Perils of the Warp.
Also true.
I'm trying to remember who the sanctioned Psykers even are.
It's probably just the named characters. I literally can't think
There's
of
a couple bounty hunters who are sanctioned Psykers.
Yeah.
That's like almost it.
Yeah.
It's very rare. Most Psykers are unsanctioned, which means you're a dirty criminal who is trying not to get hauled off to the sanctioners.
Yeah.
Usually that means they kill you. Unsanctioned Psykers, if they go out of action, the enemy gang gets a reward bounty of D3 times 10 credits. And if they get captured, when they're sold, they're worth their full credit value, and you can sell them without the opportunity for a rescue mission.
So bad.
That is personally one of that last part, only that last part with the rescue mission is one of those things I personally think should be house ruled out, just because it's a feel bad.
Like, thanks, sucka. Say goodbye to your guy, and I get all the money for him.
I mean, you can do that. You're not going to make friends.
No.
Most Psykers are unsanctioned, and as you can tell, there is no benefit to being an unsanctioned Psyker.
Nope. And honestly, very little to being a sanctioned Psyker, other than, not the downside.
Well, let's talk about where you do find Psykers. There's a few Dramatis Personae named that are sanctioned Psykers. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, They usually come with their own powers
Right.
that are built into their power kit.
So I know Delok can be sanctioned. Not sanctioned. Can be Psyker.
Yes. I was going to say Delok is the house that has the most access to Psykers.
Yes. I believe their, oh God, what's it called? Prospect is a Psyker.
The Prospect is Psyker with a really bad willpower.
Yep. One of their exotic beasts helps Psykers.
Yep.
And they have a special bonus where it's like per guy that's near them, they get a bonus to their willpower.
Delok is also, Psychic is kind of part of their theme.
That's their kit.
Because they talk to the, squid people below the sea.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this more in our Delok review. I was thinking more like...
Same diff.
Yeah.
Different accent.
Yeah. That's a southern accent of squid.
And then there are some of the more customizable gangs.
Yes.
Outcasts, Venators, Chaos, that can choose to be Psykers.
Gene Stealer cults.
Gene Stealer cults can choose to be
I
Psykers.
would say that Delok have the most access to Psykers
Yeah.
in general because it's built into their prospect, which you can spam infinitely. And they actually have their own psychic power tree.
Yes, which is rare.
Which is rare. They're the only house that has one. Gene Stealer cults can get a psychic, a psyker in their Magos.
Yes, the Magos.
It's one of their leader options. Chaos cults can get psychic as one of their leader options.
Yeah, so the Witch is just it's a 0 to 1. You can only have one, and it's a champion.
Yes.
And then if you're a Tzeentch follower, you get your leader is also a Psyker.
That is also one of the ways for normal gangs to get psychic, is by becoming Chaos corrupted. And if you worship Tzeentch, the benefit of being Chaos corrupted is that your leader becomes a Psyker.
Yeah.
Super unsanctioned, but they get to be one.
Yeah, the most unsanctioned.
There is a custom bounty hunter profile that you can choose that is a psychic bounty hunter. So you can create your own bounty hunter and use them in your gangs, or use them in the Venator's gang. Outcasts doesn't have technically the same amount of access as Delok, but Outcast is by far the most psychic capable gang, because you can, in addition to being able to use any leader from anywhere, one of the leader profiles has a 4 of willpower, and you can choose their archetype to be Psyker. They also can have 2 champions who have the Psyker archetype.
Right.
Although their 2 champions start with 8 willpower.
So they're really going to be focusing a lot, is what you're telling me.
Or like I'm doing in our current campaign, just not, one of them has a psychic power you don't need to cast, and the other one is just going to have to get good. Otherwise, there is also a drug you can buy called Gast, which will grant you a psychic power from a random table for the duration of the battle. The powers are fun.
The fact that it says random is the worst part.
Yes.
If you could pick, it'd be way better.
Yes. One of the alliances you can choose, the Psi Syndicate, Psi something Syndicate, one of its perks is they find one of your gangers is a Psyker. And you get to have a Psyker ganger.
I honestly forgot about that.
I think you roll randomly, so it could be anyone from your leader to
a random guy sitting in the background.
Yeah,
I'm a Psyker?
to Jimmy Juvie, who has a willpower of 10 or something like that.
Oh God, ogres, that would be very funny.
There is, I was about to say, one of the possible brute types is Awakened Ogren.
Nice.
Who is a psychic Ogren.
He just explodes every time. No, that's a joke.
I cast rock. What?
Rock!
There is also a exotic beast you can get that is a Psyker and rolls randomly on the psychic power table.
I don't remember that one.
It's in here. It's the Grinks cat or something like that.
Oh, yeah, the cat.
Yeah, it rolls randomly on the psychic table. Speaking of the random psychic table, for anybody who is choosing randomly, and this is where things get a little weird, because we run into the problem of Necromunda having multiple books published at multiple times with multiple things about this.
Yeah.
The newest rulebook has a list of 6 weird powers, one from each of the weird disciplines, which we'll talk about in a second video. This does not replace any of the other disciplines.
Right.
There are some folks who are thinking that now when you make a Psyker, you only get to choose from this. No. No. If you're making a Delok Psyker, you get to choose from, you in fact have to choose from your house before you can choose any of the general powers.
Right.
They don't have a choice. Which, because the psychic Delok powers are old, they're not very good.
No, they're not.
That's actually kind of a downside for Delok.
Yeah.
The only time you use this table of 6 is when you are rolling randomly for either like the Psy Syndica thing, or the Grinx Cat, or Gast, or...
I believe the Zinch one is also random.
The Zinch one is also random because it's Zinch.
Yeah. He blesses you by just like poking your brain a little bit while you're sleeping.
Yep. We won't go too deep into these because all of the ones on this list are also in the main list.
Yeah, we'll cover them later.
And we'll cover all of them. There's good ones and bad ones.
Yeah, always.
None of the ones on the random list are terrible.
Correct.
They did not choose the greatest hits, but they didn't choose the worst, although Assail's pretty bad. But it's not great.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
And I think that's it for psychic powers.
Yeah, covers it.
The only other last thing to bring up is that there are, to my knowledge, 2 weapons in the trading post, which have the hexagrammatic keyword,
Yep.
which does extra damage against Psykers. One of them is a stake crossbow.
We also should mention the force ability.
Force weapons. So if you're a Grey Knights player, you know that a force weapon is a weapon you channel your psychic stuff through.
Going to read it off.
In Necromunda, it's a equipment upgrade you can buy
Yes.
for 75 credits.
Which is a lot.
So yeah, the Psi Amplifier, 75 credits, rare 15.
Yeah.
And it's only for melee weapons. Basically, it gives one of your melee weapons the power keyword and the sever keyword. Power means that it on a 6 to wound, you ignore armor saves, and it can only be parried by other power weapons. Sever means that if you roll any severely injured results, they just go out of action.
No, it's not severe. It's not if they roll severe injury. It's they don't roll injury dice. They are just out of action.
Oh, right, yeah. Anyway,
It's very, very strong.
it insta-murders things. So that can make a not great weapon really dangerous in the hands of a Psyker, but it costs 75 credits.
And Psykers usually aren't the best at melee. So, like...
Usually not, although the Delock prospects are better at it than they are at shooting.
Or psychic, for that matter.
Well, yes, but the Psi Amplifier doesn't actually require you to make a test.
That's true.
You can just whom, whom, whom and do it. The Outcast leader archetype that has the 4 willpower also has a 2 of weapon skill and 3 attacks.
Oh, that's really good.
So that is actually that feels built for this.
That's true.
The only reason I'm not putting force on mine is because I'm already going to give her a power fist.
Yeah. So power's kind of irrelevant.
And with a damage 3 power fist, do you really need sever on top of that?
Right.
I mean, that would be funny, but it's also 75 credits. So that's Psychic Powers and Necromunda.
Yeah.
They're rare. They're fun.
Yeah.
We'll talk more specifically about the individual powers in our next video. Some of them are game-changingly powerful. Some of them are hilariously useless.
Why did they even put that in the book?
Look, maybe I want to hit somebody with a bunch of strength 2, damage 0 attacks. Said no one ever.
No, nobody.
But they're out there. Psychic is not something you do incidentally in Necromunda.
Yeah.
It's almost always something you have to build for. That combined with the fact that being an unsanctioned Psyker is really bad means that you don't see them in a lot of play.
Right.
That being said, because you don't see them in a lot of play, people rarely have defenses against them, and they can really mess with people's heads.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Pun kind of intended.
So consider talking to the Warp if you haven't already in your games.
Miniatures Rundown approves this message.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.